Alright, today I'm going to be going through my pizza dough recipe that I use when I make my pizza on the Gosney Rock Box. So what I've done so far ahead of time, I have dissolved 2 teaspoons of salt in about 1.5 cups of water. And then I added, after that was dissolved, I added about 2 teaspoons of this dry active yeast. And so that's just been sitting in there for a few minutes and it's starting to ferment a little bit. So it's where I want it now. I'm going to put this back in the fridge to help make it last longer. So now that I've got that there, I'm going to start to add the flour. Now before I add the flour, I'm going to explain what flour I use. So I am using the King Arthur 00 flour, and I'm starting with 4 cups of that flour in this bowl here. I'm also using the pizza dough flavor that King Arthur makes, and I've put about 4 teaspoons in with this flour. And for the dough improver, which is good if you're trying to have the dough be a little more stretchy and not so elastic when you go to stretch it out, this is really cool stuff. I think it helps. I've got 4 tablespoons in there. So 4 teaspoons, 4 tablespoons, 4 cups. We got the 4 for 4. Not quite 4, but anyway. This is the mixture all mixed up here. Now, a lot of people that I've seen in other videos swear by weighing the ingredients. I don't necessarily think that's good for me. For me, I like to just have the ingredients out here. I start out with the same amount of water, salt, and yeast, and then this, the flour mixture I add as I go, and I add it until I feel like I've added enough. A lot of things, variables, humidity, a lot of things can affect how much dough you use. So I almost never use the same amount of dough whenever I make pizza. So I try to just go until I feel like I've got enough. So I'm going to add it a little bit at a time. I'm going to start here, adding maybe a 1/2 cup right there. And then I'm just going to be mixing it with my 2 fingers and letting that go right there. And we just keep adding a little bit at a time and mixing it. Now as we go along, it's going to start getting thicker. I'm trying to make sure to incorporate as much of the flour in and make sure I've got a consistent mixture before I add more flour. So if it starts sticking to the side, I'll just kind of rub the fingers along the side and make sure to get that back into the bowl. Now that it's starting to ball up, I'm going to start to kind of turn it a little bit in the bowl. I'm not really kneading it yet, but I'm just kind of turning it in the bowl because I'm not really able to stir it anymore because it is turning into more of a ball. Still making sure to try to get all the flour in as I go. Try not to leave any flour behind. Because again, that's how it's going to tell you when it's had enough. When it stops taking in the flour as much. Actually got some good stuff right there. I don't want to lose all that. When it stops taking in as much flour, that's when you know you're done. Alright, so I've already used a lot of my 4 cups of flour. And when you're using the 00 flour as opposed to like a King Arthur bread flour or an all-purpose flour, you're probably going to use a little bit more than you would for the 00 because it's a little bit finer and it'll absorb, it'll stay wetter longer. I don't know if I said all that correctly, but so now as you can see, I'm sort of working the dough around the bottom of the bowl, doing a little bit of kneading here. I haven't turned it onto my bench, which my bench is my countertop, so that's a little unauthentic, but this is at-home pizza. It's authentic at home. Alright, so now I've got to the point where I feel like this dough ball is ready to turn onto the bench. So I'm going to sprinkle flour on the counter, like so. I'm going to put the dough on the bench, I'll put this aside. And now I'm going to knead it in. It's a little sticky. Maybe I should have gone a little bit longer in the bowl, but that'll be alright. So as you can see, I'm turning the dough into the flour. And again, I want to use up all the flour before I add more flour to the bench. As you can see, I'm maybe change my technique with the kneading a little bit. I'm going more circular pattern here. Another way to knead it would be to, again, turn it into the dough, and then it starts to get long ways, and then you just flip it back and go the other direction. Flip it back, go the other direction. At the end of this, I tend to let the dough get a little sticky again, because then it helps close the ball. If your dough is a little too much flour on it, you're going to have a hard time actually closing your dough ball because the flour is not sticky. Alright, so I'm to the point here where I'm kind of liking what I see with my dough ball. And I'm going to take a quick break because I'm going to wash some dishes here and get ready for the next step. Alright, so I cleaned out this bowl. The bowl has now been lined with olive oil and a little bit of Pam. And so I'm going to take, and I'm just going to do one last little knead and turn of this dough ball. And it's going to make it real smooth. Before it was pretty smooth, now it's going to be real smooth to get it ready for its initial rise. Alright, so you can see the top is maybe even more smooth than it was before. From that just last little bit of kneading, just gonna make sure I have it nice and stuck together there on the bottom. It doesn't really matter that much. Kind of punch it, make sure it bounces back. That means you've done a good job kneading it. And now it is going into the bowl where it's gonna sit there overnight and rise. And I'm just gonna cover it with a damp towel. And that's going to be it. And then tomorrow morning I'm going to come and back and make these into dough balls. There you have it. Alright, good morning everyone. So it is the next morning and there's the dough. It is definitely doubled in size, maybe tripled in size. So what we're going to do is we're going to form the dough balls next. So I've got everything I need right here for that. I'm going to sprinkle some flour back onto the bench, and I'm going to turn this over and hopefully it falls right out. And it did, so you can see there's still the oil on top there, so we're going to actually be incorporating a little bit of olive oil into the final dough balls here, just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to try to portion this into 4 equal pieces. I'm just eyeballing it. Some of the dough balls might be slightly different size than the others. I've gone ahead and done that. Now I'm going to form them into the balls. I need a little extra flour because of the excessive oil here. Alright, I'm just going to basically turn it into itself and keep going around in that corner. There might be a couple of air bubbles that might pop up. I'll try to get rid of those. And after I go around a few times, I'll try to pinch it off underneath this. There's one dough ball. All right, we'll keep going here. Trying not to push too hard. I'm just kind of holding it in the, kind of making a cup with my hand and just kind of using that to keep it held up. I'm not squeezing it with that other hand. See, I kind of pinch off the bottom there. And now we've got 4 dough balls that are close to the same size. All right, so I'm going to put those on here. And this has a cover. This isn't exactly what they use in the pizzerias, but this is what I've got at the house. So until I really go all out with my pizza making, I'm going to have what I have. Give them a little room because they are gonna rise a little bit more, and probably they'll be touching each other once the afternoon comes. There you have it. All right, it's showtime, everyone. So the dough is ready to start making pizzas. I'm gonna open this up and you're gonna see what our dough balls have turned into here. So the dough balls look nice, they are ready. So I'm gonna go with pizza number 1 tonight. Pizza number 1 is going to be kielbasa and mushroom with a few other things here. So let's go ahead and start that. So what I do is I take some of my flour mixture, which is actually a mixture of the King Arthur flour and King Arthur semolina. And that semolina is going to act like the ball bearings. That's going to keep the pizza from sticking too much to anything, so I can get it on the peel, get it in the oven, and go from there. So go right on here, and then I'm just going to kind of use my fingers to flatten it out. Flip it over, kind of spread the excess flour out here. The dough balls were pretty wet when I picked them up still, but all of this flour and the semolina is gonna do what it needs to do. So this is how I stretch the dough. You see other videos where people do it all on the table. This is how I learned to work the dough when I worked at Papa John's for like a month. So now we've got it stretched out nice here. It's about the right size. Again, I want to make sure that I've got my dough on my flour on the table so that I can get the pizza peel under it. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with my sauce here first. Start with the sauce. This is gonna be a mushroom, and I got some kielbasa cut up. That's what this first pizza is gonna be. I sauce maybe about an inch or so from the edge. My kielbasa over here. So sometimes I'll put the cheese on first, sometimes I'll put the cheese on second. I'm going to do a little bit of both here, and to be quite honest, this is a mistake. I should have put the cheese on first, but I didn't do that. So I'm going to try to right my wrong here by putting the cheese on and then the rest of the kielbasa. And then I think this one's also getting some mushroom. So we got some mushroom here. This looks nice. And then I'm going to do just a little bit of ricotta. A little bit of ricotta. That's ricotta for you New Englanders. Wow, this is exciting. All right, so now it's ready to go onto the peel. Like my last video, when it's time to go on the peel, don't overthink it. You just got to do. It's upside down. That would have been a drastic, bad mistake. Alright, so we've got it onto the peel. I'll do one little final stretch. Not going to make much difference. And then we'll into the oven. Oven is really hot. We're talking 700-800 degrees here. That's on the stone. So I'm going to let it cook for, I don't know, about maybe 15 to 20 seconds before I start turning it. You can already see it, the dough starting to rise quite a bit. I mean, it is hot in there. Now, once you do that first turn, it's really only about probably 10 seconds for the next turn. I'm getting ready with my cutting board there. Getting real close. Alright, we're almost done here. Not much more left on this one. She's a beaut, Clark. Alright, we're right there. I'm actually going to throw it back in right on this side here. Get a little extra char, give it a little extra time. Every second I can get it for the bottom is good without burning the top. Alright, almost lost it there. There you go. That's the pizza. That's the end. Hope you enjoyed this video.